Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Hands On channel. I thought today we would talk just a little bit about some of the pros and cons of raising backyard chickens, especially in like a suburb setting like we're in here. It's probably a little different if you've got a big barnyard and a big farm and stuff like that, because you don't worry about the small things like them tearing up the yard and stuff like that. But I wanted to kind of talk about some of the pros and cons in case you're thinking about getting into having your own little backyard flock. I think it's a great idea. It's a great way to put eggs on the table. And you know, the way the economy is shifting all the time, it may be a very smart thing to do. So let's get you pulled in here. I'll show you my setup and basically some of the things that I really love about them, some of the things I don't like so much about them. So in my flock here, we've got 2 roosters, and as you can see, they're having to stay in their own cages. And the reason they're having to stay in their own cages is they're overbreeding my 7 hens that I have. I started out with 8 hens and 2 roosters, and I actually had 2 of those white birds that you can see off in the distance there. I had 2 of those, and one of these roosters, I think it was that red one there on the right, he was trying to breed her or show his dominance or whatever, and he basically ended up suffocating her. I found her, or at least I presume that's what happened, because I found her the next day kind of hunched down on the floor in the breeding mating position, and the rooster was still stepping on top of her, and like, you know, they'll do that to just kind of to dominate them, and I don't know why they do it, but he ended up killing that one girl, so I had to separate them at that point. And early on, we thought that one on the left, that big black one, we thought that was a hen because it doesn't have the traditional markings of a rooster, especially when it was younger. It took a long time to develop the comb and stuff like that. So this variety here is Australorp / Rhode Island Red, I believe it is what these were mixed. These were just farmyard chicken variety. You know, I wasn't going for any specific breed necessarily. I just wanted good dual purpose birds. And what that means, if you don't know, is they're good for meat birds and egg laying. So you can use them either way. If you just wanted to have hens, I would recommend that's what you do. If you're just getting into it, just get the hens. Don't bother with the roosters. They're a lot of trouble. They crow a lot, of course. That's one of the downsides. And it's not just in the morning at, 5 a.m. And usually that's about when these guys start crowing, is about 5 a.m. And they don't stop all day. They crow their butts off. I'm surprised they haven't been crowing ever since I hit the record button. That's usually what they do. They start crowing their little butts off. So anyways, it's just what they do. They're noisy. And if you're out in the suburbs and you're away from your neighbors and stuff, that's probably okay. But even inside my house, we can hear them in the morning and stuff when they're crowing. And it's before we're ready to get up. They're out there crowing their butts off at the first little glimmer of light on the horizon. So just be aware of that. They crow a whole lot. And the other thing is they tend to overbreed my 7 birds. And the original plan was we were going to go ahead and cull that one on the left there, because it's such a big bird. It would be a great size for a roaster, or in this case, it's old enough now, I'd probably have to do it in a stew or something, but slow cook it. But we never did do it because we looked at the size and the robustness of it, and we were like, well, we kind of might want that characteristic to pass along to the offspring, and we haven't done that yet. We haven't bred any of them to the point where we've incubated the eggs or anything like that, but we plan to do that. That's why we wanted to get our own stock, and we didn't buy them. We bought some of them from Tractor Supply. The white hen and the gray hens are from Tractor Supply, but all the other ones I bought from a lady out on a farm. And I just wanted to get some, fresh genetics and make my own farmyard variety of chickens here. But anyways, as you can see, let me get some more lighting going here. As you can see on the ground, there's a big bare patch there. That's the most recent place that I had this. This is just a dog kennel that my neighbor was going to get rid of. And it already had chicken wire on it. He was using it for chickens in the past, but they got out of the chicken business. And then I got out of the chicken business, but he was going to throw this away. And I was like, hey, I'll take it. Don't chop it up. I'll take it. And I patched it up and put a storm door on top of it to make it a little bit better. I intend on eventually putting some barn tin across the top to go ahead and roof the thing off so that they'll stay dry. But for now, I just have a tarp and an old screen door or a storm door on there. And that serves the purpose, keeps them dry, keeps the egg laying boxes in the back. You have to have nesting boxes. That's one of the things that you're going to have to do there. And I've just got a couple of milk, or actually 3 milk crates back there up near the top, and there's a perch where they can get up there and lay, and I'll put some straw in there to keep it somewhat clean, although they're dirty. You know, they will poop all in those nest boxes, and you know, it's gross. So I put a piece of plastic down there at the bottom, like a plastic, it's probably about an 1/8 inch thick piece of, it's actually Lexan that I had left over from a job I was doing, and I cut those into the right shapes where those could fit down in the bottom. And then essentially, you know, I don't know, every time I move the coop around, like once a week or so, or once every week and a half, I will clean those all out and take the Lexan out and dump the waste into my garden or into my compost bin, because you can't dump it straight on the garden. It's too hot for that, but it is good fertilizer, so you can put it in your compost bin and use it later. Of course, they need food and water, and I really like these water jugs that we got over at Tractor Supply. They already have the hanging bracket on them, and they hold like 5 quarts, which is like, I think it's a gallon or just about a gallon and a quarter or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but it's about a gallon worth, and that'll usually last if I have the roosters in here with them, it'll last them all about 2 days. Of course, I usually change it every day and give them fresh every day. And in the heat of the summer, that'll be definitely a thing you need to do. And if you can do it, give them cold water twice a day, because that'll help keep them cool. But yeah, you can see it's a basic setup. They have some shade. They can get in the shade from the tarp. And it's not ideal, but it's what we have going right now. But the roosters, I just actually, when we bought this new property, it came with a whole bunch of old rabbit hutches. And one of them was missing the bottom here, and I thought, you know, that'd be perfect, keep the roosters in. I was keeping both roosters in there until just recently. They've started to the point where now every time they get around each other, they're fighting pretty seriously. It turns out this bigger one, this more robust rooster here, he's the tougher of the two. And he's been beating old Russell. That's the one on the right. His name's Russell. This one is Harry, because he's got hairy feet. Harry has been beating the crap out of Russell, so I've had to separate them because I'm afraid one of them's going to kill the other one. So here's one negative to these birds when you let them out of the cage, when you're free ranging them. And you know, it is good to give them some fresh grass and salad, as I call it. You know, let them scratch around and try to get bugs and stuff like that. But here's one of the downsides. Whatever your wife is trying to preserve, any gardening or anything like that, they will get right in there and tear it up. So you got to stay on top of them. I've got one bird, and I doubt she'll let us see it. I think it's this one right here. And we call her Boots because when she was born and I didn't catch it, it was my own fault. She has like club feet or something. I can't remember what they call it, but it's where the feet are all curled up, the toes are all curled under. And we actually made little boots for her, which is why we named her Boots. The other 3 brown ones don't have names because they all look so similar, we can't tell them apart. But this one right here, yeah, that's her. I don't know if you caught that or not, but her feet are jacked up. They've always been jacked up. Even the little boots didn't help. We tried to get her healed up, but it just didn't work out. But this one here, you can see on their backs how they're bare. Some of them have actually got scratches and stuff where the roosters jump up on there. And since they don't have any feathers to protect them, I don't know if that's from the molting or if that's from the roosters just overbreeding them. But since they're doing it so often, it's actually hurting them. And you can hear them. Sometimes they'll scream out in pain and stuff. And it's hard to listen to that when you know that your hen is basically being attacked and those claws are digging into that bare skin. So what we're trying to do right now is keep the rooster separated from them, which is a hassle because now I have to have 3 water vessels and 3 food trays and all this. So it's harder to keep up with that. And eventually one of those roosters may have to get cold because it's just getting to be too much. We're going to have to pick one and turn the other one into a roast chicken or something. And we probably need to do that sooner rather than later because, you know, the older the chicken gets, the tougher it's going to be. And even at a certain point, I'm sure even putting it in the crock pot all day may not do anything. But you can see they love to do this right here, just take a dirt bath. I mean, it's kind of cool, it's cute to watch them do it and stuff, but they like to take a dirt bath in the moist, wet soil. So it's going to be anywhere that you're trying to garden and stuff like that. You're going to have to, at this time of the year, in the springtime, you're going to have to keep them out of your garden, and it's going to be it's going to be tough. If you want to let them out, you're going to have to basically stay out there with them. Or the next thing you know, 5 minutes later, you'll turn around and your wife will be hollering at you because they're eating the strawberries or something out of the garden. Or another thing they love to do is if you've got tomatoes blooming, nice red tomatoes, they like to go along and they like to just take one peck out of each one of them. So it's really annoying. They're not even eating the whole thing. They just like to, they just like to sample it out and everything. So these are just some things to consider. But I wanted to show you this. My wife actually pointed it out because you can see it very well right now. You see this square here, it's green, but it's way less green than that square right there. So this is what you're gonna get if you run a chicken tractor. And now, obviously, my dog pen is not actually a chicken tractor. I've just been dragging it around and using it like a chicken tractor to not only fertilize my yard and it cut down on my weeds, but it also gives the chickens something to do and something to eat on when they're in there. So, but this is about a week ago. So I left that there for 1 week. So I just moved this like a couple of days ago. So this coop right here has only been over here in this location for about 2 days. But after about a week and a half, the ground is going to look like that, and you should move it. This is from about 2 weeks ago, maybe 2.5 weeks ago. It'll recover fairly quickly. If you let it go too long, it'll take longer to recover. That's the key to it. So it's better to move it more often, and you'll have less overall damage like that. It's not really damage, because what they do is they go in there. A lot of that's from them eating it away, and the other portion of that is just from their pee and their poop is so hot that it just burns the grass up. But later on, it'll grow back and it'll turn really green and lush, and you'll have a lot less weeds. It won't get rid of all the weeds, but you'll have less weeds than you would have. So I got to go over here. They're already getting in. See there, that one's inside my wife's flower pot there, and she may have some kind of seedlings going, or did. Get out of there. So they're a little bit of trouble if you're trying to garden. That's something to keep in mind. And you got to constantly do head counts and make sure you've got them all rounded up. Another area they love to go is right over here behind my house by that window. They like to get over there and dig and scratch, and it's okay if they just do a little one, but they will get in there and dig a big pit. You got to keep water out for them everywhere. But yeah, I just wanted to give you guys a few little tips in case you're thinking about this. That way you won't be surprised by it. I recommend first timers not even messing with roosters. They're so much easier to deal with when it's just the hens. This is the first time we've dealt with roosters, and the reason that we're doing it is we want the sustainability of being able to, produce our own chicks in the future, so that we can add to our flock when we're ready to grow it. That was the whole reason. That's the whole reason we're putting up with that. If you don't need to do that and you think that, you'll be able to get chicks every year from here on out, then, you trust the system, then go ahead and just get hens and don't worry about the roosters, because it's so much easier to deal with them. What's funny is they get over there and they kind of, what I call teasing the boys. They like to get right up by the cage. They like hanging out with the roosters. The part they don't like is the, getting attacked when they're not ready for it. Because the roosters, they will actually, the reason I had to take them out of the coop here is because I've got some perches up here. I'm sure you can see those. I've got a couple of perches up there, so mainly it's so they can get up there and perch at nighttime. They love to sit on a perch at night. And the other thing is so they can get away from the roosters. Well, the roosters, especially that red one, had figured out that he could jump up there, and because they're just sticks, he could knock that stick in, the perch in such a way that it would knock at least one or two of the hens off. And then so he wasn't even trying to jump up there on it. He was just jumping up there to knock the hens off of the perch. And then once they're on the ground, he could have his way with them. Another thing you should know is if you need to handle them, you can grab them, even the big roosters. But what you got to do is corner them somewhere, because they're going to be hard to catch. Uh-oh. See, Russell, that's the red one. He starts the fights, but then Harry finishes them. So Hopefully that's all there is to that. But that's basically kind of the start of a fight there. But they get pretty aggressive. Their neck feathers will flare out, and it's basically a territorial breeding thing, I guess. They're showing off for the honeys, I guess. Much like the teenage boys back in my day would do burnouts in their cars and ride wheelies on motorcycles. You know, when I first started learning about the chicken tractors, these people online made it sound like, oh yeah, it's just going to totally restore your yard and get rid of all the weeds and all this stuff. And I just wanted to show you guys, this is the reality of it. I mean, it does help the yard. It is beneficial because you're putting the waste down. But what they also do is they dig little holes and they make it uneven. They don't always do it so even as that one. That's actually a pretty good one. That's a pretty good section there. Usually what they do is they concentrate in one or two areas, and like in here, right by where they're hanging out right there, they'll dig that out and dig a big deep spot. So you're constantly chasing them around with a shovel also. So just be prepared for that. It's not going to totally restore your yard. At least not in my area. So and they're curious. They're fun to just be around. That's one of the good things, is they are fun to watch. And you know, they're see them doing stuff like this. They have to get inside the box. Check it out. See if the grass is greener in there. And you see here, I have a little chain link fence. They rarely fly over the fence. Occasionally they will, and usually it's right at nighttime if I leave them out too long. Like say I forgot about them and I just went in the house and I was like, oh darn, the chickens. They will actually put themselves up in the coop, but sometimes they'll actually get on top of the coop. And it must just be a chicken thing, you know, they want to get up there and roost for the night, so they know they're close to the coop. But a couple of times they've actually flown over the fence, so just be aware of that, because if there's neighborhood dogs, they'll eat them. We had one try to get to ours. It actually dug under the fence trying to get to our dog, or to our chickens there, and luckily my wife spotted it and just in time. So yeah, a lot of crowing. I get about 5 to 7 eggs every day. Fresh eggs, the best you can ever have. Partly because, you know, we didn't pump them full of all kinds of who knows what kind of chemicals and stuff like that. You do have to clean the eggs. You know, a lot of times they'll have a little poop on them. There's nothing wrong with eating fertilized eggs if you want to have roosters among your flock. There's nothing wrong with that at all. In fact, some people pay extra for that. I'm not sure it's worth the benefit, but supposedly they're a little better for you. So there is that to consider. But it's just a great thing to do, especially if you've got kids. My daughter, when she was young, she just loved it. So just a great experience, great family thing, and you can put food on the table. And hopefully coming up soon, we'll be talking about rabbits. I'm looking at some different varieties of that. I'm looking at the New Zealands and the Californians. And I'm also looking at one called the Texas A&M rabbits. They're Tamuk, I believe they call them. And that's actually what I'm leaning towards, because they're supposed to be fast growers and put a lot of meat on the table. And you can actually, you know, use the fur if you want to and use other parts of them. So I'm ready for a big fur blanket or a rabbit fur coat or something. I don't know. Well, Russell put himself up. He's wanting to make sure he doesn't get put back into that little cage again. You know, I don't like putting him in those cages, but I'm just having to run with what I've got for right now. Eventually, I want to build a second cage, probably similar to this dog kennel because it's worked out so well. I'll build a second one, and that way I can keep the roosters separated when I need to and stuff like that. And I may even have to make it 2 cages in one so that I can keep the 2 roosters separated. So I don't know how long we're going to put up with that. We may just have to turn one of them into a roaster. What'd you say? You want it to be you? Huh? You want to be the roaster? Okay, this happens quite often. I've got one missing, and it's Boots. So I've got to go around and find Boots. She's probably over here, hunkered down underneath the flowers. All right, mystery solved. She was underneath the plants over there, just as I suspected. So, got her back in. And by the way, she does live a pretty happy life as long as I keep the roosters away from her. That's the main thing. But see, she can get up on the perch, even though she's got jacked up feet. She still has a pretty good life. So, anyways, guys, just things to be watching out for if you're going to have chickens on your homestead. Appreciate you tuning in. And until then, we'll see you next time.